TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Helping Durham Region here on Rogers TV Durham. I'm your host, Rob MacArthur. And today we've got a couple of guests, we'll go with guests, from Durham Youth Services. But what they're doing is a gift to the community, let me tell you. Right now we have Shannon Jackson. She is the Executive Director of Durham Youth Services, and Leah Wall, who's the Manager of Youth Housing Solutions. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh, well, thanks for coming. And before we sort of get into talking about what's going on there, maybe Shannon, a little background about yourself, you know, how long you've been with Durham Youth Services, how you got involved, sort of stuff you did before that.
Sure. So my name is Shannon Jackson. I am the Executive Director for Durham Youth Services. I joined the organization in April 2022. Prior to that, I have spent the bulk of my career in human resources. So I had been in senior level HR positions in the private sector and in the for-purpose, not-for-profit sector, and then followed my passion to serve youth in need in my own community. I live in Durham back in April 2022 and have not regretted it for a single second since.
That's awesome. Leah, we've never talked, Shannon and I have before, so give us a little bit of background about yourself and what you're doing.
Sure. So my name is Leah Wall. I'm the Manager of Youth Housing Solutions at Durham Youth Services. I've been with Durham Youth Services since last August, so I'm just coming up on my first year. Prior to Durham Youth Services, I've had my entire career since about 2018 has been in homelessness in the adult sector. So I come from experience from working for an adult male shelter in Oshawa, as well as working for a community clinic doing outreach support. So very much involved in encampments as well as harm reduction.
All right. And yeah. Wow. Yeah. And there's a big shortage of housing for everybody these days.
Right.
So, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And let's go just a little bit of background about Durham Youth Services, what it does for the community, how long it's been around. Maybe Shannon, you could start fielding with that one.
For sure. So Durham Youth Services began in 2008 as Joanne's House, Durham's only youth-focused emergency shelter. And it was identified as a need from a local lawyer, who realized, Joanne Ducka, realized that there was a need for homelessness supports for youth in Durham, and she created an emergency shelter. And while we continue to operate Joanne's House, and it continues to be Durham's only youth-focused emergency shelter, we've come to realize that to achieve our vision of ending youth homelessness in Durham Region, sheltering youth is not nearly enough. And so we now operate over 10 distinct programs under the buckets of youth homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing, and housing stabilization in an effort to ensure that all experiences of homelessness for youth are rare, brief, and non-recurring. And Night Stop is the most recent addition to that suite of services that are designed to help youth resolve their homelessness. So prevention and resolution of youth homelessness. Our mission is to partner with youth to achieve and maintain lasting solutions to their housing crisis. Last year alone, we served 439 unique youth in Durham. Youth homelessness in Durham is on the rise. From 2022 to 2023, we saw an 88% increase in calls for shelter to our emergency shelter. And so far this year in 2024, we've seen another 144% increase. And so we really needed to look for innovative solutions to prevent and resolve youth homelessness. And that's where we've launched a new program very recently to be able to achieve that.
Okay. Now, Leah, your position, and you're relatively new with your organization, but is this directly related to this new homelessness epidemic, I'll call it, lack of a better word?
So when I was onboarded into coming to DYS, it was very much about doing some research, checking to see what our neighboring, communities were doing, and actually just looking right across Canada to see what solutions were out there, how effective they were, and were these something that we could bring to DYS and would be definitely embraced within our own community. And coming, through that experience of checking what others had to say and meeting credible advocates right across Canada, we learned about Night Stop, and we brought that forward as being something that was definitely something that we could feasibly be able to launch within our community, and something that would be well received given the programming that we're already providing at DYS around shelter diversion and that earlier intervention kind of work.
Okay. And we're certainly going to talk about Night Stop, but I guess maybe let some people know what the other programs you have. You mentioned about, I think, 10. So because they may not be aware of all the services you provide.
Totally fair. So when somebody calls Durham Youth Services now for homelessness supports, they go through first what we call shelter diversion. And our shelter diversion is really recognizing that everybody deserves better than a shelter. And we know that even one night spent in the shelter sector increases a young person's risk of chronic homelessness exponentially. And so the first kind of central intake for Durham Youth Services, if you will, is our shelter diversion program, where we explore every safe alternative to shelter before we bring them to Joanne's house. With that, last year we were 56% successful in finding a safe alternative.
Right.
Within that, there are a few programs that somebody may actually touch outside of Joanne's house within that prevention model. We have a family reconnect program. And the family reconnect program is really about helping support youth in returning and remaining at home, because when home is safe, home is always best. Mm-hmm. Since that program's inception, 77% of the youth that were served through that program have gone home and stayed home. Another 14% of the youth served are housed independently, but are connected with stronger relationships with their family. Another 8% are housed independently, but have unfortunately disconnected from family. And only 1% of the youth that we've served in the last 5 years with that program remains homeless today.
Right. Which
is pretty awesome. Yes. And so that program is really around family reunification. We also have a youth housing support program that is based in the community, that when somebody is successfully diverted out of the shelter sector into somewhere that is not their own family and natural support, that person still needs help with managing, getting on income support, connecting with mental health services, perhaps, connecting with education, and being able to re-enroll or stay enrolled in school. We have a program that helps support those youth in being able to successfully case manage to their next step in their emerging journey to adulthood.
Right.
In addition to that, we have a community support outreach program that's now working inside the school system. We know that 3 out of 5 youth who experience homelessness don't identify as homeless. They're couch surfing, they're at a friend's house, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not Googling Durham Youth Services to get the supports that they need, but they're in a housing crisis and they desperately need help. And so we're now working within the school system to be able to provide that support, meeting with them where they're at, not only figuratively, but actually literally. Those are sort of our prevention programs.
Right.
Our second bucket of programs really falls under rapid rehousing, and that's that emergency shelter at Joanne's house. It's a 10-bed emergency shelter that really is a housing program that happens to come with a temporary bed. Within that, we have a rapid rehousing program where we provide active case management every single day, supporting youth in being able to move from homelessness to housing. Last year, our average length of stay in the shelter was 19 days, and we hit almost 50% discharge to housing.
Oh, that's changed, because I was there pre-Joanne's house when it was called the Durham Youth Shelter. and we were looking at 45 to 60 days.
Yeah, we
So
we
that's
are down to
great improvement.
19 days with an active program that is all about housing focus,
Okay.
and it is working. But sometimes young people need more than just a short-term shelter stay. And when that happens, we have two transitional homes. We have Jackie's Place in Ajax and Harris House in in Whitby, that combined have a total bed capacity of 12 beds for youth 16 to 24 who need to be able to have a safe place to stay, to finish their education, to get stable employment, to be able to learn the life skills that are necessary for independence. And so we've operated those two transitional homes to help youth who need a little more help and some more case management support as they move toward independence. We have a Housing First for Youth program, and that is really designed to support the most complex cases where people need a lot more help and more intensive case management. And the unique attribute of that program is that we will work with small caseloads and help people for as long as it takes for them to be able to make the changes that they need to make in their lives to be able to thrive as they move into their adult experience.
Right.
So that's sort of our rapid rehousing program. So we've got youth homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing, and then on one of the things that we're really building at this point within our suite of services is a housing stability focus, because we know that once people get to that finish line of housing, the work is not done. At that point, we need to help them get set up and established, and we need to help them with sometimes some pretty intense mental health supports, because when you are in the survival crisis of homelessness, you can't process everything that's happened for you. You need to be able to hit stability to be able to then work through that trauma that led up to homelessness and was compounded during your experience of homelessness. And so we have a program within that where we help youth with a First Start kit that gets them the home essentials that they need. We help decorate their homes with the partnership of Toronto Condo Staging and Design, an amazing group of volunteers who are donating beautiful furnishings to help personalize that space and make it something that youth can feel proud of. And then we have a mental health support program that happens after they've moved into housing. So that's sort of the everything we do today, much more than just a shelter, but that's if we want to end homelessness, sheltering youth is not going to get it done.
No, it's a Band-Aid solution. It really is, right? So where does the funding for all this come? I mean,
the majority of our funding, a little over 60%, comes from the region of Durham.
Okay.
And that's the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs, funneled through the region of Durham to DYS. And then we have generous partners in the community. Home Depot Foundation is fantastic. The Ontario Trillium Foundation actually funded Leah's position and allowed us the opportunity to explore and research what options are out there or what programs are out there and bring them to Durham, which was amazing. And then the generosity of community members, service clubs, the faith community, business community, and individual donors helps us get the job done.
Wow, that's great. I mean, it is a village to support. You know, you need the community to jump in.
100%.
So and we're just coming up on our break for the first segment. But when we come back, it's going to be all Leah talking to us about this new program and what she's doing there, because what I read from the press release, it sounds pretty exciting. So you're watching Helping Durham Region here on Rogers TV Durham. My name's Rob MacArthur. My guests are Shannon Jackson and Leah. I want to make sure I want to say it right, because I've been known not to. So and when we come back, we're going to hear all about what Leah's doing right now. We'll be right back. See you soon.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
They've reached the summit! Back-to-back Stanley Cup victories.
Greatness.
And a new legacy begins! Absolutely amazing. It has happened in Vegas.
It's not a destination.
and lightning has struck twice.
It is a continuous journey that never ends.
These are the moments you dream of. Stanley Cup champions.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
This is Rogers TV.
Hello and welcome back to Helping Durham Region here in Rogers TV Durham. I'm your host, Rob MacArthur, and my guests are Shannon Jackson and Leah Wall from Durham Youth Services. And prior to the break, we were talking mostly to Shannon about some of the programs and services of Durham Youth Services. But this half, there's this new, I got an announcement, a press release about this new program that Leah's all in charge of, and I want to hear all about it. So Leah, tell us all about it.
Oh my goodness. So thank you, Shannon, for kind of just breaking down DYS, because I think that's very much what happened when I came to DYS, was trying to figure out what services we were already providing. And when looking at programs, which one would kind of fit into the portfolio and be able to be supported in a way that was meaningful to the way that the program's already designed. And that's very much Night Stop. So kind of just to build off what Shannon had said was in terms of that prevention piece and that shelter diversion. So that's what Night Stop is. It's really about shelter diversion. It's identifying that, you know, there's not always opportunities for young people to be able to return home or be able to have, you know, a family friend or someone that would be able to provide a night of safety for them. And, you know, it's in those times that we're having to intake youth into the shelter. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, we don't want to have to intake someone into a shelter that might have another opportunity for them. And Night Stop is really a program about some of our most vulnerable youth, some of our youngest youth that are really coming in, that we really want to make sure that we're limiting that exposure to street involved youth. You know, there's very much a difference with someone who is experiencing homelessness maybe for the first time. It's very scary. They've never had that exposure before. And, you know, being around others that are maybe kind of going through those same struggles, you know, they're teenagers, like every other teenager. They're very impressionable, right? So, you know, just that's very much what Night Stop's about. So during that shelter diversion process with our shelter diversion worker, you know, there becomes a point that we're able to identify, is this someone who might be right for Night Stop? So what is Night Stop? Night Stop is about community volunteering. It's emergency respite. So I'll kind of give you a history of what that is and kind of, you know, what made us decide and how it's integrating into DYS. So Night Stop is actually a program that came from United Kingdom. It's been going on for just over 3 decades. And what had happened was 360 Kids in York Region had seen this amazing program and thought, hey, we want to bring this, you know, to the youth that we're supporting. And they did. So the program has been running in York Region for about 5 years successfully. So when I was doing my research over kind of about a 6-month span, I came across 360 Kids and the amazing work that they were doing with Night Stop. I had reached out to Tally, their manager at Night Stop there at 360, and right away, I knew this is what we needed for DYS. We needed the opportunity. We needed to be able to provide a youth with another opportunity, if it made sense, if they were able to go through the risk assessment, to be able to place them in the community for a short-term stay while DYS is able to work with them to either potentially return home or make other arrangements depending on the situation. So that's kind of how Night Stop came to be for Durham Region. It's under an accreditation. So we are actually the second in North America accredited to run Night Stop.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
Very exciting. Yes.
Yes.
So how does Night Stop work? So very much what's happening is I'm out in the community and I'm talking to community partners. I'm talking to community members and having conversations about, do you have a spare room in your home? Is this something that you would be willing to be able to open up your home for a young person that might not have any other option? And while they're doing that, not only are the hosts being supported by myself, me doing those check-ins, but also the youth themselves are connected with a DYS staff, depending their circumstances, if family, for family and natural supports. If the youth does have that connection and possibly is going to return home, it would make sense to link them up with supports that'll be able to work through that. So that's very much what the program is about. We officially launched this month with recognition for Ontario Trillium Foundation for giving us this opportunity in 2023 to go out and take a peek of what was out there. And so now we're going through the process of recruitment, getting out there and having conversations with possible volunteer hosts, drivers, for when a DYS staff is not able to do that transportation piece.
Right. Wow. It sort of flashes me back many, many years ago. Block parents. I mean,
yes.
It's so funny that you said that, because it's actually what I called it. I was like, it's almost like that, that family where you're like, that's the safe one. That's the one, the person that you can go to that everybody knows is okay. And that's very much with Night Stop, is we're vetting the host. Not this program is very much about the safety of the host and the safety of the youth. The recruitment process of a host includes having reference checks. They're getting their vulnerable sector check. They're attending training to be able to work through the different situations and be prepared for youth that are in their home. We're having an opportunity to do home inspections, all these different pieces to really make sure that the people offering their home are able and equipped to be able to provide that. And at the same time, recognizing that the youth that are being placed in those homes are going through a vetting process as well, making sure that, an intense risk assessment and risk management evaluation based on the circumstances they're in, to make sure that they're an appropriate fit for this program.
Right. And it's almost like a mini foster parent. When you go short term, but all the checks and all the background checks and like I've had friends that have gone through all of that, and they go, wow, it's like a year process. There's so many things, but they have to be safe.
And that's the thing, and being able to have those opportunities to make someone feel prepared to support a youth when they're there, and 100% having that extra support from DYS during that process as well is absolutely essential.
So while they're there, they're going through all the other programs that get them back to normal, like a new normal or the same.
That's
normal.
Right. Well, and keeping them in their community, right? So, being able to have hosts right across Durham Region, so that, if we do have a youth that is looking for support in Ajax, that we're able to keep them close to their home school, because we want to make sure there's not a disruption in their everyday life. We really want to try to keep a stability for the youth as much as we can during their housing crisis.
Right. So what's your sort of proposed or, estimate of the number of locations you'll need?
I think that, we're starting, it would be great to have 5. I think having 5 host locations right across Durham would be absolutely beneficial, kind of just based on our numbers of knowing we've gotten really good at shelter diversion. So because we're good at shelter diversion, we have that ability to see how many of the youth that we weren't able to shelter divert would have been eligible for the program.
Right.
So it's in that of recognizing that if we were able to have, say about 5 hosts right across the community, that we'd be able to do that. In York Region, the average stay is about 3 to 5 nights. So it's a 6-week program. However, only 3 to 5 nights has been the general to be able to support that youth and kind of getting a little bit more on track without even touching the shelter. They're not entering the shelter at all at that point.
Well, that's great, because
Rob, that's to get us started. But I do anticipate this growing beyond that.
Well, I would expect. I just remember from the shelter. I remember there was times we couldn't take any more kids. We were at capacity. They had to, if Durham Regional Police had someone or this and that, they had to be sent somewhere away from the community, which is the worst thing.
Or in the adult shelters. So, and that's the other piece, is recognizing that we don't want, because we are the only youth shelter in the region, that, when we're not able to step in and provide that support and that safety and that security, that often they are being referred to an adult shelter. And, that's scary for some kids. Yeah. At the end of the day.
And staying on the street is not the answer. I'm in Northumberland where I live, but Coburg and Peterborough, it's terrible. And Durham it is too. It's everywhere. There's just not enough solutions. So, this fills a gap, basically.
It does.
It fills a gap.
And if we can help support youth who are those lower acuity youth, right, who don't have unmanaged mental health or addictions issues, who are really just a young person who's in a tough spot. We see a spike in youth homelessness in June when final report cards come out.
Right.
Right. These are youth who
yeah.
are not a risk to the home that we're putting them into. But
Right.
if we can divert them away from the shelter, then we free up shelter beds for the youth who don't have any other option.
Right. Yeah. It's funny, when I was during COVID, I was driving transit for Port Hope, and the youth I would have on the bus in the winter just to come on, and I have to get off. No, stay on as long as you want. Like especially the winter months, and that's coming. So.
Yeah.
And I think the strong reality that human trafficking amongst youth is very prevalent in Durham Region. So given that we know that,
Yes.
we really want to limit exposure to vulnerable youth.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a race, to get them off the streets before that happens, because it goes down a rabbit hole that it's hard to come back from.
Absolutely.
So, right. So I mean, and I mentioned, Durham Police would come. So are homeless children, young adults, are they coming to you, or they're getting referred mostly from child services or children's aid, or so probably all of the above, but sort of what's the general statistics of which way they're coming?
We get referrals from schools, from other community partners, from youth themselves, sometimes from parents, from friends and counselors, and referrals can come to us from anyone who knows a young person who needs some help.
Yeah. So that's great that they just can come, or you can say, hey, I know somebody, or because sometimes youth won't want to say they have a problem.
Absolutely.
They're very tight-lipped. Yeah. So you've done this press release out on the program, and what's the response? I mean, I was pretty quick to jump the gun, wanted to talk to you, but what's the response been like so far?
People are excited. Honestly, I feel like we've been so embraced, not only from our community partners, like right within the region, and it was very reflected in our host selection committee. We were able to assemble an amazing group that was really a reflection of different service providers, Durham Mental Health Services, Victim Services of Durham Region, Durham Regional Police, representation from the region of Durham directly, having representation from the Refuge and another youth-facing agency, coming together to help us sift through packages and really make sure that we're going through the selection of hosts and bringing their expertise of risk assessment and, their expertise from their home organizations, being able to support us to really identify the different things that are going out there that our youth are facing. So I would say we've been embraced definitely within the community as seeing that this would be a program that would be successful. I've started the recruitment process. I have a lot of the libraries coming this fall. I'll be in, have committed to hosting me come in to do a recruitment session and provide that information. We're very fortunate that a part of our OTF grant was that we were able to hire 2 youth advisors with lived experience and be able to have conversations about, how would they feel and what's the, reviewing our program documents and kind of just giving their insights into service delivery as someone who's been through our services. So we've been so fortunate because they've agreed to actually come along to the recruitment and have an opportunity to really give a face, because, with homelessness, there's definitely a stigma, and people very much have that visible homelessness in their mind when they think about it. Whereas with youth homelessness and definitely that transition for me coming from the adult sector to the youth sector, youth homelessness is very much a hidden homelessness, and that's why education amongst the community to understand what you're looking for. If you're seeing a kid at school that maybe is wearing a sweater a couple days in a row, seems to be carrying everything they own in that backpack, that we want to really shift to make sure that people understand that just because someone's experiencing a homelessness or a homeless crisis doesn't necessarily mean that they fit that picture in their mind of what homelessness is.
Yeah. Well, we've run out of time, but this is great. We're definitely going to have to talk again about 6 to 8 months, how it's going. But thank you very much, Shannon Jackson, Leah Wall from Durham Youth Services. And I look forward to reading and hearing the success of this program. And thanks again so much for showing up, coming to be a guest on the show. You're watching Helping Durham Region on Rogers TV Durham. My name's Rob MacArthur. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.